Alright guys, what's going on? We're going to kind of show you guys a quick breakdown on how to break down a deer to your just basic cuts. This is not a crazy process that takes an expert to do. A lot of people kind of shy away of how to break down a deer, but it's relatively quite simple if you just understand a little bit of basic anatomy. So today I'm just going to break this deer down into different sections and different primal cuts. Just trying to show you guys how to do this. So here we've got the whole deer, got a little small doe. We're going to start with the front shoulders, and these shoulders are not held on by any bone or anything. So all you got to do is kind of trim it away. The whole shoulder comes off. Very simple. So I've got my two front shoulders off. All they're held on to is just by a little membrane. Okay. Next step I'm going to do, I'm going to flip the deer over. Okay. You got your hindquarters here. All right. This is where it might be a little tricky for some. And the way I do it is just the way I've learned it, the way I've always done it. It's not necessarily the perfect way. Other guys got other ways of breaking these deer down. But it's just the way I like doing it. Okay, so we got these hindquarters here. All right, if you notice right here, this leg comes into the main part of the spine. And you see almost like a little V right here. So that's where I'm going to take my first cut. Okay, so I'm going to go right along through here, all the way down, and then coming to here on the back part of the bone, coming down. Okay, when you apply a little pressure to it, okay, I don't know if you can see that or not, you have your little hip socket. Okay, if you look real close, there's a little membrane right here. Okay, so you just pop that little tendon connecting that, and I put a little more pressure on it so it starts to open up. All right, so just take your knife, kind of weave it through here, put a little pressure down, and that leg starts to come off. Very simple. Okay, so now I'm coming up. Here's your top sirloin that you have on a deer. I'm going to come back, kind of cut it at just a slight angle. If I don't get all of it, that's fine. I'm going to come back and trim it up here in just a second. Okay, come down to the back of this hip bone, this pelvic bone here. Okay, make your cut. There you have your leg taken off. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and hit the other one. Same thing, start from here, work your way down, put a little pressure. There's that little tendon right there, pop it. So I'm going to cut down and into the meat. Work along that bone, work that leg free. Alright, while I go ahead and have it here, okay, I'm going to take my two inner loins. These are the tenderloins of a deer. If you're familiar with beef cuts, this is going to be like your tenderloin steak, filet mignon, whatever. This is going to be the most tender part of the deer. These are relatively simple to take out. I'm just going to make one cut along through there, one coming back, and these things just kind of pop on right out. There's your tenderloin. I'll do the same thing for the other. Okay, flip my carcass back. Okay, I didn't necessarily get all the meat off this top sirloin. Okay, so I'm going to come back and just kind of trim up what I can. Trying to make sure I get as much meat as I can off this deer. Left a little bit of the ham right there. Trim some of that off. Again, just trying to get as much as I can. Okay. So if you look real close, this is your top sirloin going into your hindquarters. There's a little hip bone right here. That's going to be the separation between this loin of the deer going into the top sirloin. Okay. This is going to be your whole loin, or back strap, what a lot of people call it. All right, so I'm going to start my cut back up here towards the neck. This is the chuck of the deer, similar to like a chuck roast that you would get on a cow, just a lot smaller. All right, I'm going to start up here by the neck. Just kind of work along that neck bone down. And if you look real close, this is kind of separated. I've got a little hole I can stick my finger through. That's where I'm just going to kind of shave off that chuck piece right there. Okay, so this would be similar to your chuck roast on the cow, just way smaller. All right, I'm going to go ahead and kind of do the same thing on the other side. Kind of work it down. All right, I'm going to come back later and hit this, but now I'm looking to what people consider the best part of the deer. This is going to be your back strap. Okay, just go back up here by the neck. Trim off a little bit of excess meat. Okay, if you look, there's your spine going to this cartilage. Okay, I'm gonna start my cut kind of right there, right along the spine. All right, and all I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna work all the way down the spine to that hip bone that I was telling you about earlier. There's a hip bone going back into there right there, okay? Kind of do the same thing. Now I'm gonna come right over the top of the ribs, put my knife flat like I'm filleting a fish. Come back up where I can kind of get a hold of my loin. All right, and I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm just gonna work down the top of the ribs, okay? Try not to saw with your knife. If you can, kind of run your thumb behind it and pick up on that just a little bit. As you get down past these ribs to these back ribs, that loin starts to dip down. Kind of make sure that you get your knife working down as well, so that way you go over the top of the ribs, down to that hip bone, make a cut. Now I'm just essentially just going to kind of peel this thing off. And there's my back strap. Hold on, okay? I'm just going to do the same thing to the other side. Again, if you've ever filleted a fish, it's very similar to staying low. That bone going all the way up through. So this upper part of the carcass, I've pretty much just taken most of the meat off. Now you're going to leave a little bit of meat behind. You go through and kind of just peel away what you missed, and that's fine. For the most part, it's a lot of bone. Now you'll see a lot of guys, especially on a much larger deer, right here along the rib, they're going to have a whole bunch of meat. Here in South Carolina, I don't really have that big a deer, so for the most part, I might get just this little bit of meat off just for your grind and trimmings. All right, but honestly, there's not really a whole lot there that's really worth messing with, especially on a smaller doe like this. Now, if you're in the Midwest or further up north and you're killing bigger deer, you know, you can get a lot of meat off that, but for this particular deer, it's not going to be so much, okay? You can just see just then, I'm not really getting a whole lot of anything off that, okay? All right. All right, so I'm going to come back to these primals right here, but what I have essentially there is my 2 whole loins, my 2 inner loins, okay? Any excess meat that you have off to the side, that's what you're going to save for your burger trimmings. So I've just got like this little bit of chuck meat. Some people like to take that and make it into stew meat. I particularly don't for deer. But I'm going to come back to these hindquarters and these shoulders, okay? You can see this deer was shot in the shoulder with a rifle, so a lot of this meat that you got to be careful. A, you don't get bone fragments in there. B, that you don't have any kind of bullets or any kind of metal shards in there as well. Okay, so you're gonna have to kind of just work around that. This is the way I break down shoulders. Again, you may have a different way. That's fine. Okay, but I'm just gonna start here at this little bone sticking up here. Okay, kind of shave it on down. All right, trim off that little bit of meat that doesn't look too clean. I'm just going to essentially just kind of shave this meat off. You're not necessarily getting a lot off the shoulders. Okay, again, that's just going to go to my trimmings. Okay, again, I'm going to have to work around this shot. You see, like, that's got a little blood's coagulated there. I'm just going to trim that off as well. Okay. All right, next portion. Start up here at the top. Again, just working around that meat. I don't want to put that to my trimmings. That's just all bad. Cut that away. It's nothing but bone fragments and all kind of junk that you don't want. All right. Now you look on top of the shoulder here. Okay. If you notice, it kind of makes a triangle here. I've got a bone going along right there. All right. And this is just your shoulder blade. I'm just going to make a cut going along with that shoulder blade there. Work around here, and I'm going to essentially just lay this out as well. You can kind of tell that shoulder blade's got a big thick bone here, and then it goes to a big flat bone right there. Just shave that off. It gets you a little chunk of meat, again, just for trimmings. All right, run that in my grinder. Same thing here. I go along this bone going down. Just salvaging what I can off this shoulder. See the rest of this meat here. I just got maybe a little piece up here, but well, these deer shot in the shoulders, you're not really going to have a whole lot of meat that you can salvage. But at the end of the day, you're not losing that much meat off the shoulder. But with this, it's just blown up. I'm just going to chuck it. I'm going to come back to this other shoulder. Okay, this one's a lot cleaner. Start here again. Shave off that shank. Peel what little bit of meat I can off the end. Trimmings. Okay, what I like to do, I like to stand it up. All right, the shoulder kind of comes in here, dips back, and runs back down. So this bone kind of makes a little zigzag coming down. We'll start here at this, work along that bone. Just keep even pressure. It's going to give me a chunk there. Flip it around, same thing. Go along that bone, getting that meat off. All right. Coming back to this little top portion of the muscle. Again, same thing we did a while ago. Running that down. All right, here comes your flat piece again, just on the other side. Run it down there. Flaying like a fish. I'm just going to chunk these up so it goes through my grinder better. Okay, again, you may not necessarily get all of it, but all you're doing is just deboning. You're not getting any fancy cut off these shoulders. So it's not really anything to worry about messing up. Good thing about if you mess up a cut on a deer, you can always throw it in trimmings, make hamburger meat out of. All right, coming to our hindquarters, okay? This is gonna be where you're gonna get the majority of your meat, okay? So in this hindquarter, all right, I have my shank, all right, or this would be like your ham hock or anything like that, all right? I have my top sirloin here. You're also gonna have your sirloin tip, your top round, your bottom round, and your eye round, all located in this one hindquarter, okay? This is where you're gonna get the majority of your meat. If you are looking for roast, cube steak, anything like that, that's going to come from here. Okay, again, a lot of guys have different ways of breaking it down. This is just the way I do it. Okay, so I start with the leg up. I have the shank here. Okay, I'm just going to start flat. First off, start flat, take that little piece off. Okay, I'm going to stand the bone up, have that tendon right there that you hang the deer on with. All right, and I'm just going to run it parallel down to this bone, all the way down. Now when I get to this point, I'm going to hit a bone, because this bone kind of bows out and then comes back in. Okay, so work my knife around and then go back in. I don't know if you can tell that or not. Kind of went out and went back in, and now I'm essentially kind of just working down this little line right here as I just go down the bone. Okay, all right, cut that off. I'm gonna flip it around, same thing, bone here. I'll start here, just work down the bone. Now I'm just going to work on shaving off these pieces here. I'm just trying to salvage what little bit of meat I can off that I didn't get the first time. And most of that's just going to go in trimmings anyway. For the most part, pretty much taking the majority of the meat off that. All right, so again, just excess meat, that's gonna be trimmings, okay? So now I'm left with 2 big chunks of meat. This is gonna be your sirloin tip, okay? And these are gonna be your 3 rounds, your top round, eye round, bottom round, okay? And along with a little bit of your sirloin, okay? I'm gonna start with this piece. This is your top sirloin. All I'm gonna do, flip it to his back. I'm just going to kind of trim this down a little bit. Okay. Kind of get it nice and square. All right. If you wanted a roast, sirloin tip roast, all you would do, you get this little bit of gristle. I'm kind of struggling to get that one. There it goes. Get that little bit of gristle. You don't even really need a knife for the most part. You just start peeling away. Peeling back. And say that's gristle on the other side. I'm just going to shave that little bit of meat from my trimmings. This is gristle. Don't want that in trimmings. Okay. Trim off that little bit of fat. A little bit of deer fat in your trimmings is not going to kill it. You don't want an excessive amount of fat from the deer itself because it'll make the meat taste a little gamey. So if I wanted like a good roast for cooking in the crock pot or anything, that'd be your sirloin tip roast. If you wanted to not have a roast out of that sirloin tip and you want to go a little further, you can get a couple pieces of cube steak out of this. For right now, we're just going to leave that a roast. All right, coming to our rounds again. All right, if I flip this piece up, all right, so that's where it was sitting on the leg. Flip it up where I made my cut. I start peeling back. Notice there's a lot of this little membrane going down through this piece of primal. Okay, I'm just going to take my knife and just barely hit it, and it just opens up. I don't even really need a knife for the most part. Okay, I can just run my finger just kind of along down through there. All right, and I'm start separating these three muscles. Kind of easily work my knife down through here. That's going to be my top round. Okay, this little long skinny piece right here, that's going to be my eye round. Again, I'm just going to kind of make little cuts here. Well, all I'm doing is just kind of separating that membrane, that muscle from one another, that connective tissue. Eye round. All right. So what I'm left with, I have a little bit of my sirloin. This is my bottom round, and this is what's left of my shank. Okay. Now you got to be careful with these hindquarters. This is that gland that everybody doesn't want in their meat. And, you know, essentially just ruin your grind meat. Make sure you cut this out. So it's unbelting all this fat. We'll kind of open this up a little bit. Just kind of, again, just nick it along. So this here, that's your shank. All right, it's got a lot of tendons and everything else, but still makes good grind meat. So all I'm going to do is just cut that up, put that in my trimmings. Okay, here's your gland that you want to make sure you get out. Okay, I'm just going to run my knife parallel along here. I'm just kind of work on separating that out. There's your gland there. You kind of see it enveloped in that little bit of fat. You need to chuck that. All right, so out of that hind quarter, what I got was my little bit of shank I had my sirloin tip, my eye round, my top round, my bottom round, a little bit of sirloin. Okay, again, this is where you're going to get your cube steak. I'm going to leave this sirloin tip as a roast, so I'm going to put it off to the side, but we're going to start with our bottom round. We want to get some cube steak out of it. All right, all I'm working on is just trimming away all this excess stuff that's not necessarily part of the primal itself. All right, see that you have all this in the deer. You have a lot of silver skin. That's some other stuff that you want to remove. It's just gristly. It's not what you want in your cube steak. Okay, so all I'm going to do, kind of put my knife in right up under the skin, kind of just ease it along. All I'm doing is just trimming that off. Again, that's just real tough gristle. Don't really want that in your trimmings either. Just get rid of it. All right, again, another little gristly side right here, off to the side. Okay, if you trim this away and trim this away, you're gonna get a little bit of meat there. All I have to do now is just run my knife right along the side of that. Again, that's just, it looks like you're wasting a lot of meat. You're really not. It's really thin. That's just gristle. Don't want that. Now the silver skin, you can go in your trimmings. It's not going to hurt your trimmings. So I can just kind of shave that away, just like you're shaving your face. Just kind of ease that away, shave it off. Okay, so now I have, this is my bottom round. Okay, all I'm going to do here, I'm just going to split down the middle, go down to the bottom, that tougher skin that's been sitting out in the cooler, and just shaving that off. Okay, same thing here, just like filleting a fish. That can go in my trimmings too. All right, now I'm left with these 2 pieces of meat that are, for the most part, real well trimmed. If I want to make cube steak, all I gotta do is just cut little chunks, just big enough to fit in my cuber. All right, top round same way. You got a little cap, all right, on the top of your round. You want to first remove that cap. Again, just run my knife, that connective tissue. Go in your trimmings. Bring the primal here, okay? You got like a little smaller muscle that kind of goes on the underside of that. Again, I'm just going to kind of ease that out too. You can get 1 or 2 little pieces of cube steak out of that. The rest of the trimmings, flip it over, get some silver skin, peel that away. I'm essentially left with just some good clean meat here, okay? Just make my cube steak. All right. Here's your eye round, same concept, okay? Just gonna kind of peel and remove. Cut, cube steak. All right, coming back to our loins, trimming these up, okay? This is your tenderloin from earlier. This is real easy. All you gotta do, take these, peel off this little tallow, kidney fat, whatever you wanna call it. Get rid of that. Not really good to eat. That's gonna be a good, lean, tender piece of meat. A lot of times I'll just kind of trim off that little bit of silver skin there. Those are great, we can leave those whole. Here's my whole loin. Again, this is the part that was connected to the rib cage and the spine. Bring my thumb here. Has a real thick, very grainy piece of meat on it. I'm just going to peel that off, peel that away. That's nothing to bristle, get rid of it. All right. Now, if I'm wanting whole loin here, kind of work on trimming this up a little bit more. All right. Little piece here off to the side and kind of peel that away. Again, this is all stuff that we can hit in just a little bit, okay? So now I'm taking my knife, I'm just gonna fillet this just like a fish, okay? I'm gonna go right in the middle, down to that silver skin, peel off. Same thing here. Down the silver skin, peel off like you're filleting fish. All right, didn't get all of it, that's fine, okay? Now I'm just gonna take my knife, just peeling away what little bit is left. Whole loin there. Some people, you can leave this little piece right here, you don't have to. I like to take it out. It's very easily go along through there. Now I have a nice piece of whole loin here, okay? All right, I'm just gonna do the same thing to the other. Come to my other hind quarter. Work on trimming it. And I've got plenty of cube steak. I'm not gonna worry about making cube steak, but again, if you're wanting cube steak, that's what you're gonna make out of your tips here. All I'm doing, I just want a lot of hamburger meat, so I'm just gonna chunk this up. Again, don't forget, this top and bottom round, make sure you get that gland out of there. Let's work on trimming that away. Here's my top round. 5 round, taking this gristle off this bottom round along with that gland. That'll be your bottom round. Again, I'm just making, I don't want cube steak, I just want all hamburger meat, so all I'm gonna do is just chunk this up. All right, so just a little quick breakdown. Again, I've got my whole loin. All right, I made one little roast. I wanted just a little bit of cube steak. I already have a bunch. I don't need much more, okay? The rest of it, took a chunk up. That's gonna be grinds meat. Add beef fat's probably the best. You can also add pork fat to it. Some people don't like fat added to it. I like to add a little bit of fat to it, make spaghetti, chili, things like that. But hopefully that helps you guys figure out how to break down a deer. Again, it's not a hard process. If you have a sharp knife and kind of know what you're doing, know a little bit of anatomy, something you could easily do at home, as long as you have a little small grinder, something to work with like that. But appreciate you guys watching. Hope to see you on the next video.